strange person that I know from the computers. How are you today, Del?
I am so excited to be back on the internet. It's just great. I was precarious about it. Is that the right word?
Sure.
Yes, perfect. I knew that was the word of the day, and I'm going to use it every chance I get. So this week we're discussing Space Force, the comedy created by Steve Carell and Greg Daniels. You might recognize the name as the fifth branch of the military they are trying to propose right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I thought it was honestly called Space Farce, but it is actually called Space Force, the name of the actual military branch they're proposing. It stars Steve Carell, John Malkovich, and Ben Schwartz, who you might recognize as half of the Middleditch and Schwartz pairing, which I'm a big fan of myself.
So good.
You might also remember him as the worst guy from Parks and Rec.
Yes,
John Ralphio, the boss. Yeah, John Ralphio, one of the best characters ever. Steve Carell, of course, the boss from NBC's The Office, and John Malkovich, the guy who played a very small part in a movie called Being John Malkovich.
Yes.
If you blink, you'll miss him. Let's see. The tagline is the people tasked with creating a sixth branch of the armed service, the Space Force. Okay, so I was wrong. It's the sixth. You know what? Suck it, Internet. Matt, you want to take it from here?
I think you forgot the Coast Guard. Everybody always forgets the Coast Guard. That's what it is.
I think they do in this show, too.
I believe yes, that guy gets disregarded as well. So Space Force is a workplace comedy of sorts. It centers around a group of people tasked with, like you said, establishing the sixth branch of the United States Armed Forces, United States Space Force. Steve Carell's character is the main character named Mark Naird. He is the first general of the Space Force and is in charge of the effort, and the series as itself follows the collaboration. That was a long one for me. To get boots.
Collaboration was
right, exactly. To get boots on the moon by 2024, per the orders of the president. Now, we've never heard anything like that before, have we?
Right, no. And the one thing I will say is they suspiciously, just like Veep, intentionally leaves out a lot of names while directly referencing some very clear people. I mean, AOC, Warren, Trump is obviously implicated by their characterizations in the show.
Definitely.
But these people are never directly referenced as real people, nor even it just says the president over and over again. Although you know who everybody is alluding to whenever they're talking about certain other characters. It is very much against his will that he has given this position. Steve Carell does not seem to want to head up this new branch of government. It starts with them all sitting around the kind of like the war room, the round table, right? And it's all the head divisions when he finds out that he's going to be heading it up, and he looks quite disappointed.
Yeah, his dream is to be the chief of staff of the Air Force. That's what he thinks he's going in for. But instead, he gets chief operations for the Space Force.
And you can tell that it very much, I mean, look, Greg Daniels has created a lot of good shows. Obviously, most notably King of the Hill and The Office, the NBC's Office. And he worked obviously with Carell. So you can tell they really had an idea of let's do this as kind of The Office, like you said, a workplace comedy. Here was my initial problem with it, where The Office and everything started out very realistic, but somewhat wacky scenarios and a wacky character in Michael Scott or David Brent in the British version, or even Hank Hill. You know, you get a kind of wacky character between them in real life. This one, they kept it almost too straight. They played it almost too straight for my taste, because I'll admit the pilot was kind of hard for me to get through, and I loved every single actor and actress in the show. You know, I got to the end, I just thought it's there's no humor here. They're playing it almost do you remember when Will Ferrell did that Lifetime NBC movie, but they played it completely straight the entire time?
Yes,
and it's still hilarious, but only because they never do anything funny. It was almost like that. Now, by the second episode, I guess we'll talk outside of Pilot Pass a little bit. They have apes that have to control the ship and stuff like that. And so it starts getting into the zany, cartoony territory.
Yeah.
And that's where it started picking up a little bit better. But the pilot was too, for me, grounded in reality. When you're really looking at creating a farce, when you're really creating something like, you know, The Office, you know, or even Parks and Rec, you got to have one character that's off kilter, like Leslie Knope or somebody, you know, Hank Hill, that's thrust into a scenario that's different. And then this one, this character seemed too primed and knowledgeable for about what he was stepping into, you know, for there to be a lot of comedy right off the bat. And that was the big issue I had with this pilot as a pilot.
Okay.
Or space pilot.
As the space pilot, right? See, I kind of saw it the exact opposite. I love that it was almost too serious this first go around because, and I think that this is the difference between a pilot that you used to see 10 years ago on NBC, ABC, whereas Netflix, you already know you're going to get the whole series, so you can do whatever you want in the first
Absolutely.
episode. And I think that kind of played a factor in it. Now, I knew that this was going to be funny eventually. You do have F. Tony Scaramucci. Did I nail that? Nailed that. That's John Ralphio.
I'm gonna say you did.
That's John Ralphio in here. He definitely comes and gives you a lighter flair. And since he's actually the second credited actor, he's before John Malkovich in all the lists. So I kind of knew that you would get much more of him and that kind of energy that he brings to the table. And I kind of also wonder too. You were talking earlier who that's based off of. What crazy social media press person was that based off of?
I can't speak to that one, but I would love to get into it because when I was looking down the list on Wikipedia, and I'm looking down it now, I mean, just some of the names that immediately stood out to me before I even watched the pilot that got me excited was things like Fred Willard, as his father. I'm down for that automatically. Diedrich Baker. When has he not been good in everything he's ever done? If you don't know who he is, he plays all the security guards in Kevin Smith movies, the Jay and Silent Bob movies. He's also in the Drew Carey show. Just look him up. He's great in everything he ever does.
Yes.
Patrick Warburton, great in everything he does. Jane Lynch, Roy Wood, Lisa Kudrow. Jessica St. Clair. They went out and got the best of everybody for this show. And maybe that's what I was expecting is, I think you're right. I was thinking old school. The pilot has to stand on its own 2 feet, in a time period where, they obviously sold the whole concept. So the pilot doesn't have to be as strong as it used to when you were selling, can we relaunch The Office by reshooting the original script with, a few American changes and one episode, is that strong enough to get attention? Now they can say, is a whole story of one season enough to get attention? And if so, the pilot's just got to be what the pilot has to be to start the show.
Right.
You don't have to sell the whole movie on the first scene anymore.
Yeah, completely agreed on that. I think that's something that we're going to be seeing more and more as we go along on these, as we switch over to Apple TV making their own shows or Hulu making their own shows. I think we'll see more and more it's more of a cohesion. So they play in that first kind of episode and don't worry about trying to bring you back for whatever they're trying to do.
Well, I think what we're doing now is we're selling what it's called the mini series, but now they may run multiple seasons. But you're either selling 6 episodes, 10 episodes, or at most maybe 16 episodes for a season, and they have to be cohesive nowadays.
Yeah.
If you're selling something like I Think You Should Leave, the new that sketch comedy show by the new guy from the Detroiters. Sure, all you got to do is sell them 6 zany episodes, and they don't have to connect. But now, if Netflix is going to buy something, they want to know it's going to be something like Black Lady Sketch Comedy Show or The Astronaut Club, where each show is wildly different, and so as long as it's funny, it's fine. Or they got to know they're buying a good drama comedy all the way through at least one full season. I mean, they just have to now, especially with something like Stranger Things, where even kids, my kid didn't find the first episode of Stranger Things that interesting, and now it's her favorite show.
Right.
So she was willing to wait out through the rest of it because there was just enough to keep her coming back. And I think we're going to see TV continue in that direction. I mean, especially with COVID and everybody being at home, everybody has time to binge, and even when you don't, that is just becoming the norm. So, I mean, we don't really hate watch shows anymore. There's very few. Moesha is not around anymore. And one of these days we're going to have to get to that. And I don't hate watch Desmond Pfeiffer either. I thoroughly enjoy it. But there are some shows that I will put it on just to be angry because I will get more work done. But no, I think people are just willing to say, you know what, I'm willing to go in for all 6 or 10. And if it gets too bad, I'll just back out. I tried Penny Dreadful, and I think I got about 7 episodes in before I went, okay, I'm done. American Horror Story, I got 3 episodes in, and I was just like, this just isn't my thing. So I think people are more willing to also go, you know what, as opposed to waiting every Thursday, because you have time to wait in between. Maybe next week will be better. Maybe next week will be better. Okay, I saw 6 episodes in a row. They're not getting better. You just stop nowadays. You don't feel that need to finish something you start.
All right. So on that note, let's get into the first episode of Space Force. It was entitled Launch. They actually named it this time, and there's a very important reason for that. So we've already talked about basically the first part of the show. Like, so he gets the job and his family has to move to Colorado. Cut timeline 1 year later. Now we're in the Space Force. It's basically been a disaster. His daughter hates him and his wife is in jail, which all the different looks that Lisa Kudrow goes through when she's in jail is one of my favorite parts. Like she's got the dreadlocks or she had the dreadlocks, right? Or her hair is just braided. And
if you had told me my favorite actor from Friends years down the line, 20 years down the line, would have been Lisa Kudrow, there's no way I would have believed you. And now she's been on like the Good Place, Kimmy Schmidt, and she's done characters all over the place. I didn't know that her and Conan went to improv classes together. I heard that on his podcast. If you had told me she's the one character I care about from Friends now, Phoebe, that blows my mind. But
maybe it's her sister
in jail.
It could be her sister that you're fancy.
I forget. Yeah.
So that's how the family is, and against everybody's wishes, Mark Naird wants to launch Epsilon 6 into orbit. It seems like it's going to be a disaster. He doesn't listen to anybody, up to and including my favorite character through the series, Dr. Mallory. And so he goes ahead and orders the launch. Despite everybody's concerns, it goes off without a hitch. And everything is great. And just like every episode, you think, things can be good. And then they see the Chinese are already there. What? And that's how it is.
I will admit, that was a good ending. Like I said, I thought it could have been a little more farcical, a little more fanciful. But you know what? It did at least establish a real sense of reality. And I really bought that a year later that these people were actually doing this. I wouldn't have believed Michael Scott a year later if it had said, by the way, we have the best-selling paper company. They have to build that character. I really believe that when they jumped a year, I went, okay, I'm with you on this journey. So maybe that was really necessary in the pilot, because by the time the monkey is using a wrench and eating a dog, okay, yeah, you're right. I don't know if we need is that jumping the shark when that's the second episode? Is
right,
monkeys
exactly.
piloting spacecrafts? So,
that's just amazing. So this pilot episode really kind of sets up everything in the sense that there's always a disaster. There's always a disaster they have to fix.
Well, I guess what I should say is it sets it. What's weird is it sets the tone of what to expect, but not what it delivers. Yes. Because you keep feeling, or at least the way I do, is the first half or the first 3/4 of every episode set up the way you're supposed to feel. And then the payoff is not emotionally, but sometimes comedic, sometimes dramatic, but it's always different. There's a little flip there that makes you go, well, the next episode has to take this direction instead. Mm-hmm. And I do like that you went from a drama to a drama to a comedy to a zany cartoon to, so, there's that little flip each time that I appreciate.
I really enjoy kind of juxtaposing this and Avenue 5 against each other, because Avenue 5 immediately started off ridiculous.
Yes.
And you kind of really set the tone for the way that did, where this is kind of slowly slid in there. But again, I'm going to assume that they had to really legitimately shoot a pilot, since it was HBO, before they were able to get the whole thing going. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I don't think that the episode we probably saw on HBO of Avenue 5 was the pilot. I mean, I'm assuming they probably went off and shot, I can't remember what it is, not a backdoor pilot, but the kind where it's never going to air.
Yeah.
Like they did with Always Sunny. And then, of course, once that approved, then they reconstruct the whole show, probably stretching that one small pilot into the full season, and hiring additional actors and stuff like that. With this one, I get the feeling that with Greg Daniels and Steve Carell coming to you with the thing called Space Force, and here's a list of the actors we want to hire.
Here's your money.
Yeah, Netflix goes, here's your money. What show do we need to cancel to make this happen?
Yeah.
So, but it is fun to compare these two, because they are two space comedies in wildly different veins. You have something like The Orville, which is obviously a take on Star Trek.
Yep.
You have things that are a little bit parodies of Star Wars, but Avenue 5 is a parody of like something like The Love Boat or a cruise ship type show, like a Poseidon Adventure gone wrong, but with comedy. Well, this is more of a morose drama where things go just enough bad that it's comedic, so
it's like real life in that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I've watched it 3 times, and I have the pilot has become funnier, but only because I think I know where it's going. So I still have to say, like, as a pilot, not strong. If I just had to judge the show or wanted to go based on the first episode, if I knew none of the other actors or what they had accomplished or the creators, what they had done, and I just saw this, I would have passed, honestly. So as a single episode, I don't think it's as strong as it could have been. But as a beginning episode for a long story, I think it works fine.
All right. I like that.
Now tell me how I'm wrong.
Those things, I'll tell you how you're wrong later, but that's okay. Right now, I want to ask you, what were some of your favorite moments from the pilot episode? Did you have any favorites?
Honestly, my favorite parts were it's kind of hard to explain because there was nothing story-wise I got excited about.
Okay.
It was more seeing the actors portray the characters that got me kind of excited. Like, I like Malkovich. So
that's perfect to be able to see him as that pompous ass, but yet he's completely right. Like, he's smart. He is the smartest guy in the room, but the way that he plays it is just perfect.
Because he also plays it as Malkovich. Like, if you see him being John Malkovich, he can also play the arrogant bastard who's, but he can play it and be right and hold that dignity as well. And he could also be a buffoon sometimes. And then to see Carell, who's supposed to, everyone still thinks of as Michael Scott, but this is kind of mixed half with Foxcatcher. So you get that little bit of like stone cold hardness. And he's doing that I can't even tell what the accent is, but it's that hardened Southern military kind of voice. And so he's definitely doing a character. It's just everybody in your head, you're going, but that's not Michael Scott, which is good. I mean, that drags you away from that.
Sure.
And then seeing Ben Schwartz go from being the most annoying character that I love, even in Middleditch and Schwartz, to being like the third most irritating character that I still love to watch. It was really cool too, because I didn't know if he could tone it down. Even seeing him in some other shows, I was like, but they also still let him shine. They let him be crazy and over the top and the hype man. I mean, we've obviously both seen him in Comedy Bang Bang. He always plays the agent that doesn't understand they were trying to book his client, not him. So he always comes out and plays with Tom Hanks or somebody else. So he's a real pleasure to watch. But, I kept going back between this and Avenue 5 and this and something like Veep, or The Thick of It, the guy's original show, because it really does have a feel of behind the scenes dick aroundedness, like you're not seeing the front or the face that's presented to the public. It really does. You're seeing these people act like assholes to each other in the background, as real workplaces do when you don't have to worry about being nice and impressing the boss. You're all military people. We've got rank and station until somebody does something that's going to get us court-martialed. Go fuck yourself. I can talk to you like that. I'm your superior. I like that a lot.
Never mind. I had a thought and it went somewhere else. I watch too much stuff right now. I'm at home. I'm not doing anything. Everything.
I completely understand, man. I finally went back to work after like so long.
Would the show be a better movie than a show? What do you say?
Okay, so we're back to the original question that you asked. Okay, gotcha. Okay. You know what? I think it would work. It's one of those that honestly I think would work as well. For me, this one you could cut a lot out. And it would work really well as a very funny, serious comedy, something like Death of Stalin. Where if you want to compare, we're talking Death of Stalin versus Veep, where that format works long form and it works extremely short form, and it works for something like a movie in between. I get the feeling this could have worked either way. If they had said, we want an hour and a half movie, we want 2 hour-and-a-half long movies, we want one series, I think it would have worked either way, because I think you can cut the drama to make it more comedic. I think you can cut the comedy to make it more dramatic. You can cut the fact that there's multiple zany things going on. You could reduce in a simplified story in a movie. It could be about just the Epsilon mission, and if you want to do a sequel later. I don't think that the richness from the story comes from the amount of episodes. I think the amount of repetitive craziness is allowed because of the amount of episodes. I think you'd have a tighter story if it were a movie, but do you need that when you're also trying to have fun with a lot of great actors? Don't you want to give them the room to play? So you know what? I guess on that, I would have to say it has to work better as a TV show, because it gives these people room to work, where a movie, it would have to be tighter and concise. You'd probably lose a little of the comedy.
You'd lose some of the background characters. Probably the biggest character that you'd lose is Steve Carell's assistant, because every time that guy messes something up, it's gold. But you don't have to lose that in a movie.
And I can't recognize. I mean, I'm even looking for him now. You'd recognize his face immediately. He's one of those B and C level actors that you always see in everything, and he's always the goofball. But I love him. I always remember his name. And you things like you drop the daughter. The daughter wouldn't be in the show. His wife, that wouldn't be a character. He'd be simplified to a single man. You know, it was. So yeah, I guess it does play better as a show. The fact that they can also bring characters in and out, and you may lose them for a couple of episodes, but then they come back. You'd have to just. Basically, all the characters like, the Schumer ripoff and the Warren ripoff and the Pelosi ripoff and the AOC ripoff, those would be distilled down to one, political figure who has a problem with with Steve Carell. That'd be down to like one or two characters representing that whole group. So, yeah, I guess I am gladder. I guess I am glad that they left it more long form.
Okay, so let me ask you this question, if it were. Now, I don't think that this is going to be a very good one for this show because everybody's either way up here or way down here. But is this anybody's best? Did anybody hit their apex, their perfectness, the height of their career, the top?
100% no.
Well, I got a new one for you. Okay. I got a new one for you. Ready?
Yeah.
Has anybody reached the top of Cocaine Mountain that Tony Montana stood on at the end of Scarface? That's my new comparison. That's where we're
really on this one.
Yes.
No, there's nothing anybody does in this. It's not Stephen Carell. It's not Steve Carell's Steven, so formal.
Steven. Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not his best dramatic, which I still think is Foxcatcher. It's definitely not his most comedic, which might even be something like 40-Year-Old Virgin or something besides even Michael Scott. Malkovich has been funnier, and he's also been more dramatic, and I think that can be said for just about everybody. I've even seen Ben Schwartz, do some more serious characters, on IFC when he really does look down in the dumps, in front of Scott Aukerman. Mm-hmm. So I think I've seen everybody, like you said, have higher highs and lower lows. I think everything kind of rides right in between. I'm even looking down the thing. Jane Lynch has done a ton of better stuff. Diedrich Baker's, done a ton of great things. It would have to be one of the C-level actors, maybe, that are doing better than normal.
Okay, how about this? Or let's not look at people. Is this the best desecration of a flag in movie or in TV history? When the Chinese run over our flag on the moon? That's pretty. That's close to apex on that, right?
Now, remind me, because I can't remember, and it's not to that part yet. Because in real life, that flag is bleached white from all the UV radiation. Sure. And I can't remember in the show, is it, or is it still?
I think it's last color on the show.
Because I don't think the joke would have played so well if it had been realistic.
Right.
And I just don't. Now, see, I would have laughed at that if it had been rolling over a flag and people would have been like, I don't get it. It's a white flag when it's surrender. That would have played funnier for me. But no, that the fact that they're crushing it on the moon was pretty good because especially you just weren't expecting that at all. And so too. But I don't know if it's the best desecration of a flag.
Yeah, you got to think.
Got to be some funnier ones. Wasn't there the Larry Flint movie?
Oh,
surely there's got to be some student art film where somebody's pooping on the flag something like that. But mainstream, I'll say this: it was innovative. Why don't we put it that way? The Chinese beat us to that too.
Innovative. I will take innovative indeed. Speaking of innovative, let's play Netflix, shall we? Netflix always gives you some recommendations after you watch a show. They say, hey, if you watch this, you like this as well. So it's not like a straight, if you watch this show, this is exactly like it, watch this. It's a little bit varied on that. So would you tell us a little bit of what you would recommend to do this as a double feature, to combo Space Force with?
Well, I think we're going to have to go with the obvious, which you've already stated. So let's just get them out of the way. Avenue 5, Veep, Death of Stalin. Okay, there you go. Those are out of the way. You know what? The Right Stuff. The Tom Wolfe novel that was made into a film. I mean,
love it.
I'm going to put it up against the real version and have fun with that. You know what? I'm going to go Apollo 13. Same thing. Because, if you're going to enjoy yourself and you're going to watch a story about this, enjoy it. Hell, I'll put up Interstellar against this too. If I'm going to make a day of watching space decisions, I'll sit back and watch 2001 Space Force.
I was wondering when 2001 was going to come. I was like, we're going to go there, right? That's going to be the one. Yes.
I was wondering, have they referenced it yet? Because I'm like, at some point they're going to have to. I think by law, man, I think by space law they have to. Movie space law.
Space law. I'm sure that's the case. Yes, those are all great recommendations. I don't know if I have any more to add, so I'll just say watch anything with John Malkovich because that's what you should be doing.
Watch being John Malkovich.
There you go.
If you want him playing himself, he's great.
Oh, and The Big Short. I think you left off that as Steve Carell's best dramatic role.
That may be, yes. You know what? Somehow we were even talking about that today because there was some guy that threw himself in front of a train because somebody shorted stock on him for $700,000.
Mm-hmm.
So he threw himself in front of a train, and the markets hadn't even equalized yet. He may not have even owed that amount of money. And of course, you can always file for bankruptcy. People don't throw yourself in front of trains over money.
Yeah.
But I don't know how, because The Big Short got right back. And of course, I'm a huge Adam McKay fan, and that's absolutely one of my favorite movies of all time. Steve Carell's great in that. That may be his best performance, dramatic, especially. That's definitely better than Foxcatcher. But it's the guy that plays Vinny is still my favorite in the show. The guy who is on Succession now, the older brother.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to look up his name because it's embarrassing that I don't know his name, and he's one of my favorite actors right now. But you know what? Go watch The Big Short just to watch The Big Short.
Definitely do that. And definitely let's talk final thoughts. You've given me some good. You've given me some bad. I'm all in on this. I am unabashed. Was all in on the first episode. I was ready to roll. Everybody was there. I was
Jeremy Strong.
Jeremy Strong. There you
go. Just want to get his name in there. I don't want him calling me personally and thinking I don't like him. Yeah.
Forever. That dude has been knocking around forever. So what would you say is your final thoughts on Space Force?
Very clever. I would say honestly innovative. It took something that you would think right off the bat. Let's call it Space Force. Let's make it zany. You know, it's a Trumpian idea, and although it's been kicked around for a while, the very first thing you're tempted to do is just make it an utter laughing stock of buffoonishness right off the bat. You know, just right out of the gate. Let's just mock this.
I think the
show actually goes start with the monkey. Yeah. And I gotta say, I'm surprised at the restraint shown by saying, let's take a look at this and see how it would really kind of play out. Sure, there's some humor, there's some drama, but let's take a serious look at whether this concept itself is legitimate or not. And I think just by hiring the actors tells you what you can expect the outcome to eventually be. Or maybe they're going to play against type. We don't know, people. You're only watching the pilot.
We don't know at all. It's a mystery and a thriller and a monkey all wrapped up into one.
There was some way to watch all the episodes before we record one of these, but sadly there's not. We've never figured out a way to watch an entire season before we record.
That intranet, I can't. Once I get past Webscape, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, was it Webscape or was it Netscape? You know what? It doesn't matter anyway. I'm still IMDbing people.
It doesn't matter because China has invented a Skynet, so we're all in trouble. It doesn't matter. Seriously,
yeah. And we've already got the Terminators here, so I'm done.
We'll talk about that some other time. Space Force on Netflix. I would say go watch it.
I would say not thrilled with the pilot, but I would say even based on the pilot, thumbs up on the show. And if it takes getting through the pilot, do it because the rest of the show is worth it. So sideways thumb on the pilot, thumbs up for the show.
And it's on Netflix, so it's just going to start playing anyhow. You literally have to do nothing.
Dude, you automatically either have one or know someone that you can steal it from. Again, space law requires that. So just go watch it.
Space law.